Hey there, Bible nerds. Welcome back to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye, where we dive into the Bible chapter by chapter. So, have you ever begged for something with your whole chest, finally got it, and then realized, oh no, this was a lot? So, today we're diving into chapters 11 through 15 of the book of Numbers. So, grab your drink, get cozy, and let's dive in. So chapter 11. We open on the wilderness playlist, stuck on repeat pretty much. So the people are moving from Sinai like a caravan that forgot to pack joy. So dust, heat, and identical breakfast every day. Manna again and again. Like a divine meal prep plan with zero cheat days. And it's the same meal every single day, forever. Well, not forever, but for a long time. So the complaints start low, surprisingly, like a hum. Then it grows. The people complained in the hearing of the Lord. And it's not cute. Like flares at the edges of camp. The place earns a new name, which is Tabera, because the situation is literally lit and not in a good way. So Moses intercedes, fire dies down, and for 2 minutes there is peace. By the way, Tabera is a Hebrew word that means burning. That's why it said it's, literally lit the situation. The situation. So then the rabble in the midst start craving Egypt. They want flavor, crunch, juicy bites, and nostalgia. We remember the fish we used to eat in Egypt for nothing. The cucumbers, the melons, the leeks, the onions, and the garlic. They basically list a Mediterranean salad with a side of slavery. They weep for onions. Meanwhile, the manna continues to fall from heaven like frosted coriander pearls. They grind it, bake it, and make cakes. Tastes like pastries made with fresh oil. It is miraculous, but routine has dulled wonder. So Moses is done. I'm surprised he hasn't been done for a long time already, because I would have been done like the first month after Egypt, honestly. But he is full of grace, just like God. But well, not like God, but Anyways, he takes the whole complaint pile to God. So this time, no more grace. Like, why have you treated your servant so badly? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give birth to them? Moses is basically saying, these are not my toddlers, while holding a nationwide snack meltdown. I can only imagine. Like, I have one child. Every time she throws a fit, when she has a meltdown, I'm just like, I get so overstimulated. And I have one child. So the emotional honesty is raw here. Moses even asks God to end his life if this is his fate. Talk about being dramatic. He has hit leadership burnout at level expert. So God answers with three moves. Move 1, shared leadership. He says, gather 70 elders. God will take some of the spirit that is on Moses and put it on them so they can share the load. Moses does not need to do this alone. Move 2, the meat. The people want meat. God says, you shall eat. Not for one day, but for 2. No, not for one day, not for 2, but a month. For a month, a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes loathsome. This is a vivid image, and also every parent's warning about Halloween candy. So, move 3, presence. God is in this with them, even while correcting them. The 70 elders gather, the Spirit rests on them, and they prophesy. Then we meet two surprise names, Eldad and Medad, who stayed in the camp and also start prophesying. Joshua, if you remember Joshua, Moses, little minion. I don't know what to call him. Moses' assistant or whatever. Joshua, what am I trying to say here? He gets protective of Moses' brand, saying, "Stop them." And then Moses smiles and says, the line that shows his heart, "Are you jealous for my sake?" Would that all the Lord's people were prophets and that the Lord would put his spirit on them? So, let me say that again. Are you jealous for my sake? Would that all the Lord's people were prophets and that the Lord would put his spirit on them? So, Moses is not gatekeeping grace. Then the wind. So, quail. Quail fly in the sea and collapse around camp in heaps, about 2 cubits deep for miles. It is a meat festival. People spread out gathering quail like they just discovered a wholesale sale. While the meat is still between their teeth, before it is consumed, the Lord strikes with a severe plague. The place is named Kibroth Hatava, meaning graves of craving. It is one of the Bible's most honest lessons about desire. Craving can bury you if it is divorced from trust. So, what are you craving right now that you believe will finally make everything better? Maybe it's comfort, control, validation, or a change in circumstance. Cravings aren't evil. They're part of being human. We're human, but they can become terrible drivers when we let them take the wheel. And there's a lot of things that people crave for, like social media. I was once there. I'm still doing a detox on social media, honestly, and I've I'm at the point, and it's been over a month now since I've been detoxing, and it's to the point now that I am changing, or my algorithms in my social media have completely changed. I don't see all those toxic things anymore because every time I see them, I don't watch it. Like, I don't know if you know how algorithms work on social media. So if you watch it for a certain amount of time, if you interact on the video, if you like it, comment, or share it, then the same kinds of videos will start popping, and then you'll see more of those kinds of content. So I'm at the point now that my social media is cleansed about 99%. And every time I see those toxic, things that are corrupting my head, which are specifically political things, those make me really angry. It corrupts my head. It makes, anyways, I don't like those. So I have been cleansing. At first I actually stopped using social media for a while, but now I'm back to it, and I'm all, cleansed, and I'm better now. So that is also a craving. And then there's also the usual, which craving for food, eating even when you're not eating, or even when you're not hungry. There's also lust. There's different kinds. And anyways, so the Israelites craved the taste of Egypt because it was familiar. They've been there for centuries. Was it centuries? Anyways, they've been there for a long time. Yeah, it was centuries. They were there enslaved for centuries. So that's all they know, really. That was their home. And they were, and then they were freed from that because, yeah, it was their home, but they were enslaved. You know what I mean? So, anyways, so they crave that because it was familiar. That's all they knew, even though it was, tied to their chains, like I said. In the same way, we sometimes long for the very thing God has already freed us from, simply because the new season feels uncertain. You're not used to it. It doesn't feel familiar, at least just yet. So let desire ride shotgun while trust in God drives. Does that make sense? So he knows the destination far better than we do. And his timing always comes with purpose. He's actually very good with that, surprisingly. Like, that's why it's always good to be patient, because once it happens, whatever that is, like, you'll realize, like, oh, this was actually the perfect time for it. It was not when I wanted it. So Moses reminds us that leadership, faith, and honesty can coexist. When he poured out his frustration to God, it wasn't weakness, it was prayer in its most unfiltered form. Like, you can be very raw when you are praying to God. You don't always have to say the right thing. You can just say whatever you feel. Like, there's this one person who were a guest speaker at our church, and so her she went through something. Let me just say that. I don't want to share too much about it, but she went through something, and then she was so hurt and angry about the whole situation that when she was praying, she was actually angry praying. And that's okay. You can pour your heart out. Whatever emotion you're feeling, like, just let it out. You can be raw when you are talking to God, and he will understand. So burnout isn't something to wear, like a badge of strength. It's not. It's a signal flashing you're carrying too much. God didn't rebuke Moses for being overwhelmed. So we get overwhelmed. My daughter gets overwhelmed. She's 4. So instead, God gave him 70 elders to help share the load. That's divine teamwork in action. Sometimes all we gotta do is ask God, like, hey, I can't take this anymore. This is too much. Like, I need help. Yeah, so, and then there's God's response to the people's craving. His answer was both a gift and a guardrail. He gave them meat to show he heard them, but he also allowed the consequence to remind them not every longing leads to life. So freedom always introduces new taste, and sometimes our souls reach back for the old onions and the leeks of Egypt, not because they were good, but because they were predictable. God invites us to grow past nostalgia for the familiar and develop an appetite for the unfamiliar blessings that come with us. All right, fun fact corner. The quail migrations across the Sinai are a real thing, actually. Ancient travelers describe waves of exhausted birds landing low across the sea because they've been flying. So they're easy to catch by hand because they're tired. So Israel did not DoorDash this. Nature itself showed up on schedule. Another one. 70 elders reappear as a symbolic leadership number later in Jewish tradition, signifying a full council. So 70 elders or leaders. So think Senate, but with spirit. All right, and that is it for chapter 11. All right, chapter 12. Sibling group chat. Unmuted. We step into a family conflict. Miriam and Aaron speak against Moses. And I've actually talked about this a little bit on my Bible study about Miriam. But so they speak against Moses because of the Cushite women that or woman that he married. Did I talk about this on my Bible study? I don't know. I feel like I did, but let me see if I remember later. Anyways, the Bible text does not give us backstory spin or reasons behind the quick note about his wife. Maybe they do not like the match. Maybe they feel sidelined, but the complaint slides fast from a personal dig to a spiritual power play. Has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Has he not spoken through us also? This is the sibling group chat going from, we need to talk to who died and made you boss. Except God is in the chat and heard everything. Then, how do I say this? Then in the Bible, it drops a character note saying, now the man Moses was very humble. Now the man Moses was very humble, more than anyone else on the face of the earth. So not weak, humble. Moses is not jockeying for position. God calls the three to the tent of meeting like a divine parent calling kids to a living room. The pillar of cloud descends. God speaks to Aaron and Miriam. Prophets usually get visions and dreams, but with Moses, it is face to face, clearly, and not in riddles. So Moses is faithful in all God's house. Saying, why then were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? The cloud lifts, and Miriam is leprous, white as snow. Aaron turns to Moses fast, like, alas, my Lord, do not lay sin on us. The priest appeals to the prophet he tried to undercut. So Moses cries out, oh God, please heal her. The same humble heart we saw with Eldad and Medad. God's answer is corrective and merciful. If a father spit in a daughter's face, there would be shame. 7 days. So Miriam is shut out of the camp for 7 days, and I've talked about all the rules, about when you are unclean. Being leprous is, being unclean. So the whole thing. And then the people did not journey until she is brought in again. And yeah, I've talked about this on my Bible story on Miriam. So the whole community waits. That is both consequence and care. Miriam is not disposable. She is disciplined and restored. So she was just being disciplined at the time because, the whole thing like, oh, why does Moses get this and blah, 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 blah. He's the favorite, this, and that. But you should not be questioning God, So criticism can sometimes wear a very convincing spiritual costume. That's exactly what happened with Miriam and Aaron. On the surface, their complaint sounded like a question about God's revelation. Like, has the Lord spoken only through Moses? Like, why only him? Blah, blah, blah. But beneath the surface was something far more human, which is jealousy and or ambition. It's easy to dress up pride as principle, to act as if it's about fairness and theology, when it's really about wanting the same spotlight someone else has. How often do we do that? We spiritualize our frustration to make it sound noble. And I know a lot of people do this. When in truth, it's envy. It's a Sunday outfit. Like Moses, however, shows us true humility too. He doesn't retaliate or defend his reputation or fire back with receipts. Instead, he intercedes. He prays for the very person who spoke against him, like asking the Lord to heal her. That's leadership on another level. That's like, being the bigger person. Um, so where intercession replaces insecurity. Imagine responding to gossip with genuine prayer for the one who started it. It's the opposite of our natural instinct, but it's the heart posture that keeps bitterness from taking root. Moses models a kind of strength that doesn't need to shout to be heard. And then there's community response. When Miriam faces the consequence of her actions, the entire camp waits 7 days for her to be restored. Then, they don't move without her. They pause the march until healing can happen. That moment says something beautiful about God's design for community. It should make space for restoration, not just punishment. Relationships are worth the pause. The journey can wait when healing is needed because God values restoration over speed. Sometimes to us humans, that's all we think about, the speed. Like, oh, it has to be now, you know. Yeah. So it's a reminder that progress without grace isn't really progress at all. So fun fact corner. Cushite. So Cushite likely refers to a woman from the region of Cush, associated with Nubia or modern Sudan. The Bible is full of multi-ethnic story long before the New Testament. Um, that's all I have, and that is it for chapter 12. And by the way, this episode is gonna be kind of short, so yeah. All right, chapter 13. New location, new assignment. God tells Moses, send men to spy out the land of Canaan, which I am giving to the Israelites. So notice the tense, giving, not contemplating, not maybe. It's already promised. From each tribe, a leader, 12 in total. We get a roll call with a little name note that matters. Hosea, son of Nun, is there. Moses calls him Joshua, which means the Lord saves. Yeah. The spies go up through the Negev into the hill country. They check Hebron, where Anakim lore lives large. The text in the Bible pauses to recall that Hebron was built 70 years before Zoan in Egypt. A little, date flex to say this region has history. So the scouts move as far as Rehob, where Lebo Hamath, northern border touch. So 40 days of recon. At the valley of Eshcol, they cut a cluster of grapes so large it needs a pole between two men. They also grab pomegranates and figs. Ooh, pomegranate. Kind of want that. This is the original pics, or it didn't happen. So they bring samples back to prove the land's richness. The report begins great. They came to the land to which you sent us. It flows with milk and honey, and this is its fruits. So Exhibit A swings between two guys, and everyone's faith meter rises. Then however, the people who live in the land are strong. The cities are fortified and very large. We saw the descendants of Anak there. The Amalekites are in the Negev, Hittites, Jebusites, and Amorites in the hill country, and the Canaanites by the sea and along the Jordan. It is a map of obstacles, and suddenly the grapes do not look as convincing as the walls. Caleb speaks up. Let us go up once and occupy it. for we are well able to overcome it. Caleb is that, friend who volunteers you for the 5K before you have even found your running shoes. The other spies pour a bucket of ice water on his enthusiasm. Like, we are not able. They double down with a dramatic flourish. All the people we saw are of great size. We saw the Nephilim. We seem like grasshoppers to ourselves, and so we seemed to them. They went from grapes to giants to grasshoppers in 3 sentences. Like, that is how fear works. It shrinks you on the inside or before anything changes on the outside. Facts and fears are not the same thing, though they often travel together. When the 12 spies returned from Canaan, their report started with truth. They describe a land flowing with milk and honey, rich in fruit and potential. Those were the facts. But then they added a dangerous twist, a story of defeat. They saw giants and fortified cities, and suddenly the facts were overshadowed by fear. Wisdom notices the walls, but faith remembers the promise. There's a huge difference between acknowledging reality and letting reality rewrite what God already said. God already said it. So it is absolute, but no, they doubted. So they feared because of what they saw. But it doesn't matter what we see. Like, you gotta have faith. God already said it, but no. So we often do the same thing. Our situation looks big, the odds seem impossible, and we start narrating defeat before the battle even begins. The spies brought back grapes so large they needed 2 men to carry them. Tangible proof that God's word was true. But instead of using that evidence to strengthen hope, they weaponized it against it. Yeah, yes, it's good, they said, but that but was the sound of faith collapsing under fear. Evidence is meant to confirm God's promise, not crush it. How often do we do that too? We see the fruit of God's faithfulness right in front of us. Answered prayer, open doors, small victories, and still say, yeah, but what if it doesn't last? So the grapes were meant to fuel courage, not feed anxiety. Sometimes, like, when something is too good to be true, so we try to sabotage it. Yeah, we do that, huh? Then there's Caleb. When everyone else was spiraling, he stood up and said, we are well able to overcome it. That wasn't arrogance or blind optimism. It was memory. Caleb remembered the Red Sea splitting, manna falling, water springing from rock, all the miracles that God showed them. The same God who dropped, Pharaoh wasn't suddenly intimidated by stone walls. Faith is not denial or difficulty. It's a decision to let God's track record speak louder than the fierce forecast. Caleb teaches us that courage isn't about the size of the enemy. It's about the size of your memory. Remember all God's blessings, all the miracles he's ever done, everything that he's ever done. Remember that and hold on to that when you face something that's, intimidating or daunting. And of course, this is easier said than done. But, try. When you remember what God has done, the giants stop looking so tall. All right, fun fact corner. The Valley of Eshcol means cluster. So the ancient Near East loved naming places after events. Israel leaves breadcrumbs of testimony wherever they go, which was kind of cool, All right, and that is it for chapter 13. That was a quick one. Chapter 14. It is meltdown night in the camp. The people weep. They accuse Moses and Aaron of a bad plan. Would Would that we have died in Egypt or in this wilderness. So they suggest a new leader to take them back. Backwards, like backward looks weirdly reasonable in the middle of panic. Joshua and Caleb tear their clothes and pled. The land is very good. If the Lord is pleased with us, he will bring us to this land. Only do not rebel. Do not fear the people of the land, for they are bread for us. Bread. The very thing they complain about becomes a metaphor for victory. The congregation picks up stones. God interrupts. The glory of the Lord appears at the tent. So God asks Moses, how long will they despise me? There's a grief in the question. God considers starting fresh with Moses, like making a nation from him. Then Moses intercedes again. He says, the Egyptians will hear. The nations will say, God could not do it. So Moses appeals to God's name and character. He quoted the Lord's own words from Sinai. The Lord is slow to anger, abounding in steadfast love, forgiving iniquity and transgression, but by no means clearing the guilty. So Moses asked for pardon according to steadfast love. God pardons. Mercy is real. Then consequences lands, of course. As I live, which is a divine guarantee, none of the men who have seen my glory and my signs and have tested me these 10 times shall see the land, except Caleb and Joshua. The rest will journey 1 year for each of the 40 days they scouted, 40 years in the wilderness until this generation rests. Their children, the same children they feared would be prey, will enter the land. The 10 spies who slandered the land die by plague. So, morning comes. Some decide to fix it themselves. They go up to the hill country saying, here we are. We will go up to the place the Lord has promised, for we have sinned. It sounds spiritual, but it's too late. Too late. Moses warns them, the ark is not going with them, and the Lord is not in this push. They go anyway, and they are routed by the Amalekites and Canaanites. You cannot edit yesterday's disobedience with today's bravado. Repentance is not a solo hike. It is return to God. So God's pardon doesn't erase consequences, but consequences don't cancel his presence either. When Israel disobeys and refuses to enter the promised land, they lost the privilege of stepping into the promise immediately. But they did not lose God himself. He still stayed with them, leading, providing, correcting, and conforming. That's the heart of grace. Even when we must walk through the long road of consequences, God doesn't abandon us in the wilderness. He walks with us through faith. Forgiveness doesn't mean freedom from all results. It means we're not forsaken in the aftermath. The Israelites would spend 40 years wandering. Yet, every sunrise of manna, every cloud of guidance, and every spark of the pillar of fire said the same thing. I'm still here. And then there's the haunting moment when the people, in a sudden wave of guilt and fear, try to fix it themselves. Like they grabbed their weapons, decided to go up the hill, and said, we'll do it now. But it's too late. Obedience is time sensitive. So this chapter also exposes a pattern that still plays out today, stoning the voice of faith. When fear takes over, hope starts to sound offensive. Joshua and Caleb's words of courage were met with rocks, not applause. Panic makes us allergic to faith-filled voices because they call us to trust when everything in us wants to control. So here's the heart check. In the moments of fear, am I silencing the hopeful and amplifying the fearful? God's people did both, and it cost them years. Yet even then, his presence stayed in the camp, proving that mercy can walk hand in hand with consequence, and that the long road with God is still better than the short road without Him. Hey, fun fact corner. They are bread for us is an ancient food metaphor. Joshua and Caleb flipped the narrative. Israel is not on the menu. The obstacles are. That wasn't really a fun fact. It's just something. All right, that is it for chapter 14. I actually have to leave in like 7 minutes. So, after the night that changed their timeline, God speaks new words that sounds like a night light in the dark room. When you come into the land you are to inhabit, which I am giving you. The promise is still spoken in the present tense. The future is still alive. God lays out grain and drink offering that will accompany burnt offerings and sacrifice, whether from vows, free will gifts, or appointed festivals. For a lamb of tenth of flour with oil and wine for a drink offering. For a ram, more. For a bull, more still. The rhythm of worship will match the scale of gift. Worship is not just smoke and meat, it is bread and wine poured out in joy. The command is for Israel and also for the alien who resides with you. And one statute for you and the stranger. Worship is not gated by ethnicity. Everyone who joins themselves to the Lord share the table. Next, God speaks about the unintentional sins. When the whole community slips, there is a path back through the offerings. When an individual slips, there is a path back too. Unintentional does not mean important, or unintentional doesn't mean unimportant, but grace is built into the law. Then there is a severe moment. A man is found gathering sticks on the Sabbath. They detain him to ask the Lord, and the judgment is death by stoning outside the camp. It is heavy to read. The Sabbath is not a suggestion. It is a covenant identity. The line between warming your fire and working your hustle is not an accident here. The community is being trained to value God's rhythm more than the survival fear. On the way to a land with plenty, they need practices that say, we do not live by grind alone. Finally, God commands fringes on the corner of their garments with a blue cord in the fringe. Every time they see that flash of blue at the edge of the robe, they will remember all the commandments and do them, not following their own heart and eyes that lead them astray. The tassels are wearable theology, little sermons that swing when you walk. Dress code as discipleship. All right. That's pretty much it. That was a very good one. So, fun fact corner. The blue dye, often called tekelet, came from the rare sources in the ancient world and became a symbol of royalty and sacred space. God puts that blue on regular people's hems. So we end with tassels, swaying and promise still alive, even after detours, even after tears. But hold your water skins, because the next chapters are going to rumble. A man named Korah is about to start a leadership revolt. The ground will respond, and Aaron's staff is going to do something you do not expect a stick to do. The wilderness is not done teaching Israel or us. And that is pretty much it. The end kind of seemed rushed, but I actually didn't have a lot on that last chapter. And that is it. So thank you for listening to Chapters and Chuckles by Kaye. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to follow, subscribe, leave a review, a comment, what have you. And you can watch new episodes on YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. Till next time, keep laughing, and as always, stay curious and stay blessed.